The report arrived like a headline missing its cause. Fatal crash in Nigeria, 2 dead. Anthony Joshua survives. Heat, tire failure, a parked truck that didn't move, explanations arranged like camouflage. I was there before the news broke, close enough to see what the cameras didn't show. The Jake Paul fight didn't feel won, it felt delivered. 6 rounds like a deadline, 33 million live eyes like a quota, breathwork behind doors timed like ignition. A serpent-tongued cue marking the moment fate locked in. Joshua thought the knockout crowned him. He never realized it completed him. The win wasn't triumph, it was transfer. The crash wasn't accident, it was collection. The script didn't go wrong, it came due. From the outside, people still talk about boxing like it's chaos wrapped in leather. 2 men, 1 ring, and whatever happens in between becomes legend. Upsets, comebacks, shock knockouts. They think it's all born in the moment. Spend enough time around the big shows, and that illusion wears off. At the top level, boxing is less a sport and more a mechanism. Fights are built the way engineers build systems. Every contract routes money one way, attention another, storylines in a third direction entirely. Outcomes don't appear, they arrive. This event, Joshua versus Jake Paul, was put together with that cold precision. You could hear it in the way people spoke about it. The first thing on everyone's mind wasn't the matchup. It was the scale. In one planning meeting, a Netflix rep said it flat, like reading a line off a checklist. We're positioned for 33 million live. That's the floor. He didn't say it with excitement. No chest beating, just expectation. The room didn't cheer. They nodded, adjusted notes, and moved on. The number hung in the air like a figure that already existed and simply needed to be reached. What bothered me wasn't the size of it. It was the way everything else bent around it. Camera plans, ring walk pacing, ad breaks, even the projected length of the fight. Everything lined up to funnel as many people as possible into the same narrow window of time. Not just to see a result, to collect a moment. Jake fit perfectly into that intention. He wasn't brought in to represent the pure side of the sport. He was there because he attracts eyes, the way a thunderstorm attracts metal. People hate him, love him, meme him, mock him. It doesn't matter which. All those reactions point in the same direction, toward him at the same time. On the first arena rehearsal day, they cleared the ring for lighting tests and blocking. A few production assistants ran through ring walks, pretending to be fighters so cameras could line up their movements. The place felt half asleep. Jake climbed through the ropes anyway. He moved through a slow shadowboxing routine, loose and unhurried. This wasn't for show. There was no live feed, no crowd. He stopped near one corner and just stood there for a few seconds, breathing evenly, gaze unfocused. Then he tilted his head, fixed on some invisible mark, and his tongue slipped out in that quick gesture he's become known for. No one around him reacted. No, do that again for the shot. No jokes. The director kept talking about lens choices. The crew adjusted a jib arm. The gesture came and went like part of the choreography. I'd seen that same motion in old clips, always close to a turning point. Fans called it a taunt. In that empty arena, with no opponent and no noise, it felt like something else entirely, like a mark on a blueprint. The build-up for the fight followed the same pattern. Every piece of content pointed toward the live broadcast, as if that single window of time mattered more than anything that came before or after. Analysts and commentators circled the same phrase. If this gets into the later rounds, that's where the story is. Then there was Joshua. He didn't come in on a wave of gimmicks or theatrics. He carried history into every hallway he walked through. Olympic gold, world titles, losses that would have broken lesser fighters, comebacks that rebuilt him. When he stepped into the building, the air shifted slightly. People straightened up. He wasn't the attraction. He was the anchor. He stayed composed all week. No nervous energy, no forced bravado, just steady. Like a man who had already accepted whatever this night was going to turn him into. During media day, I saw him off to the side, wrapping his hands while cameras focused on Jake doing rehearsed answers. Someone asked Joshua, "What kind of fight are you expecting?" He smiled in that small, controlled way of his. "Structured," he said. "There's a rhythm to this one. 6 is where everything changes." He didn't treat it like a guess. It sounded more like a scheduled time. That word, structured, stuck with me. The closer we got to the opening bell, the more obvious the structure became. The commentary scripts, the promo lines, the way the ring walks were timed, even the phrasing of sponsor reads, everything pushed people toward one shared experience, that later stretch of the fight, that pivot point. The live count wasn't just a metric anymore. It felt like a gauge on something deeper. Focus, emotion, whatever it is people project when they all stare at the same violent moment together. If you step back and see all of that at once, you stop thinking, who's going to win? You start thinking something else. What is all this being built to feed? By the time they called fighters to the ring, the answer didn't feel random. The event looked less like a contest and more like a device waiting to be switched on. Joshua walked toward the tunnel with calm, measured steps. Jake followed with that same strange, rehearsed ease. The machine was ready. All that was left was to let it run. The ceremony didn't start in the ring. It started in a conference room with blackout curtains and a folding table pushed against the wall. Almost. That afternoon, I was cutting through a service corridor behind one of the media stations. It was the kind of hallway you only use if you work there. No fans, no cameras, just staff moving quietly from task to task. That's when I heard it. Breathing. Deep, steady, layered. Too many lungs to belong to one person. Too controlled to be casual. It came from a door that should have led into a small storage room. On the schedule board earlier, someone had scribbled "team session" across that slot with no details. I slowed as I approached. The door stood slightly open, just enough for sound to leak through. In, out, hold, now. A voice guided the rhythm. Male, calm, practiced. The group followed in unison. Air moved in and out of that room like a tide. No one spoke between cycles. The silence at the end of each breath made my skin tighten. I glanced over my shoulder. The hallway was clear. I stepped closer and let my hand settle on the frame. One more step, and I could see inside. They formed a circle. Jake stood at the center, eyes closed, chest rising and falling to the count. Hands rested at his sides. His team surrounded him shoulder to shoulder, heads bowed slightly, each man breathing on the same beat. It looked less like an exercise and more like a ring inside a ring. The coach's voice held them together. In, out, hold, now. They inhaled. The timing lined up perfectly. No shuffles, no stray movements. The room felt charged, heavy, like the air itself was being pushed into shape. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The vibration felt louder than a shout. One of the men in the circle turned his head just enough to see the door. His eyes met mine through the gap. No surprise, no startle, just immediate recognition that someone stood where they shouldn't. The door snapped shut, not slammed, just a quick, sharp movement that cut off the view and the sound in one motion. The breath, the counting, the strange unity inside, all of it vanished behind that thin slab of wood. I froze in the hallway for a heartbeat, listening to my own pulse crowd my ears. The phone buzzed again. A useless notification, a fight promo from a social channel, the kind of thing everyone else on the planet was supposed to see. I silenced it, stepped back, and continued walking, trying to look like someone who knew exactly where they were going. By the time I looped around to the main corridor, the energy seemed normal again. Staff talked into headsets. A cameraman adjusted a tripod. A production assistant taped down a cable. Then the door opened. Jake walked out first, followed by his team in 2 neat lines. No one looked rushed. No heavy breathing. Their faces showed that post-exertion calm that comes from effort with purpose, not exhaustion. He saw me. Just for a moment, his gaze locked on mine as he passed. No smile, no greeting. His tongue slid out slowly, then snapped back in. The serpent gesture. Close enough to see the detail, the routine behind it. In the ring, it always looked like performance. In that hallway, inches away, it felt like punctuation, like a mark placed at the end of a sequence. His shoulder brushed mine. One of his team members gave a polite nod, as if I'd simply been in the way of a regular session. Behind them, the room stood empty. Lights dimmed, chairs pushed back, nothing to suggest anything unusual had taken place. A voice crackled over a nearby walkie. Breathwork complete. Timing still holds. Keep the schedule tight. If the pacing breaks, the collection fails. The person holding the radio replied without hesitation. Copy. We're on track. On track. The phrase fit too well with what I'd just seen. They all moved on. Security closed ranks. The hallway filled again with ordinary tasks. I could have convinced myself I'd misread it. Just a training drill. Just another version of focus. But I kept thinking about the way their breathing lined up. The way the door closed the moment the room acknowledged me. The way that tongue gesture arrived like a signature on the way out. Whatever that session was, it didn't feel like preparation for a fight. It felt like ignition. And as the day wore on, one thought kept circling back, quiet and persistent. If they needed that much control over each breath in a backstage room, what exactly were they planning to do with an entire arena locked into one moment? The undercard fights were in progress. Production crews moved around me like they'd memorized the building's arteries. Everyone talked in timing. 2 minutes, 30 seconds after this round, like they were following choreography instead of reacting to a live event. I found Joshua alone in a prep room down the hall. He sat on a low bench, tape around his fists, gloves resting beside him. He didn't look like a man waiting for a fight. He looked like a man waiting for a scheduled appointment. He noticed me at the door. He didn't break the quiet, didn't shift, just lifted his eyes like he already knew why I was there. "You all right?" he asked. I nodded, but something in my voice wobbled when I answered. "You don't seem tense." "No reason to be," he said. "It's mapped. Mapped." He said it like that word carried weight I wasn't supposed to touch. I stepped inside. The room felt still, like it had been cleared of everything except what he needed. Gloves, stool, mouthguard, water bottle, towel folded with deliberate care. Objects arranged the way a person arranges pieces before a ritual, not a contest. "You've been calm all week," I said, "even with everything lining up the way it has." "Calm is part of the agreement," he answered. No laugh, no hint of irony. "An uncontrolled fighter disrupts the transfer." Transfer. My stomach dropped a little at the choice of that word. He leaned forward on his elbows. "People think this is about him and me, about who hits harder, who falls first. It isn't. This one has to go 6. That's where the exchange happens." "You've said that before," I whispered. 6, like you know the round." "I don't predict it," he replied. "I was told it." His tone never shifted. No secrecy, no drama. Just a man acknowledging an instruction. I tried to shake it off, to stay rational. I reminded myself I'm here to document, not interfere. I'm a lens, an observer, paid to catch moments and sell them back to the world. That's my place in nights like these. But something pushed through anyway. "You shouldn't do this," I told him. "Whatever this is, it doesn't feel like sport anymore." He met my eyes, steady, almost reassuring. "I know what it costs," he said, "and what it gives. Every career has a moment where you decide which kind of history you're willing to belong to." He stood, tightening the tape at his wrists. "I didn't come here to resist. I came here to fulfill." A voice called from the hallway. "Walk out, staging in 5. Joshua glanced toward the door, then back to me. "Listen, you've seen more than people who've been here longer. That's why I'm saying this. Don't stay close after it's done." "Why me?" "Because you see through the parts that are supposed to distract you." He stepped past me, pausing just long enough to steady a hand on my shoulder. The touch wasn't aggressive. If anything, it felt like instruction. Do your job, then go home. When he left, the room didn't feel empty. It felt completed, like something had been signed, even if nothing physical had happened. I sat down on the same bench, just for a second, tried to control my breathing the way they had backstage. In, out, hold, now. It didn't bring clarity. It brought pressure behind my ribs, as if I'd stepped into timing that wasn't meant for me. I heard footsteps in the hall, measured, crisp. I stepped out and saw them. Jake and his team moved toward the ring tunnel in a straight line. No celebration, no hype. They walked like people escorting something to a destination, not someone to a fight. Jake passed me in silence. That tongue gesture again. A quick snap. A mark. His eyes didn't need to threaten anything. They implied endurance. Like whatever was going to happen in the ring had already happened somewhere else, earlier in the day, in a room I wasn't supposed to see. He didn't slow down. He didn't acknowledge recognition. He just walked. A staff member adjusted their earpiece and murmured into a headset, "Confirm pacing stays clean. If the timing breaks, the collection fails." Collection. That was the word that drove itself into my chest and stayed there. I stayed where I was as they disappeared into the tunnel. Thousands of people above us cheering, unaware that the thing they came to witness had already been converted into something else. For the first time all night, I understood what terrified me. A fight can be fixed. A contract can be rigged. But this didn't feel like corruption. This felt like consent. And I didn't know who else had given theirs. There's a moment before a fight begins where the entire building seems to inhale. Not out of fear. Alignment. Like every person watching here and on the broadcast had been pulled onto the same frequency without meaning to. When Joshua stepped out first, the reaction wasn't explosive. It rolled toward him in a single, rising push of sound like a wave hitting a seawall. He kept his pace even, his eyes forward, gloves held low. If he felt the weight of what was waiting, he carried it without expression. Jake appeared behind the lights. The crowd's response split in two directions, cheers and insults, but both moved toward him like current, attention flowing to a single point. He didn't wave. He didn't posture. He walked as though this part was already understood, a formality on the way to something else. I pressed closer to the barricade with my camera. I could feel heat from the arena lights on the back of my neck. A production manager whispered into a headset near me. "Mark time, keep the pacing clean." The bell rang. The first round wasn't chaos, it was structure. Joshua worked behind the jab, measured steps, body shots placed like instructions. Jake didn't flail or rush. He touched gloves to arms, rolled away from contact, teeth pressed together. The serpent tongue appeared once, quick, controlled. A signal returned to someone unseen. Rounds 2 and 3 passed like rehearsed scenes. Both men landed, both men absorbed. Both men paced themselves along a track already laid down. Each minute looked less like sport and more like progression. The commentators sounded strange in my ears, like they were reading timestamps, not reacting to what happened. By round 4, something changed in Joshua's posture. His shoulders loosened. His guard shifted higher. His mouth stayed closed in a line of determination that didn't belong to improvisation. It belonged to confirmation. He pressed forward, closed the ring, and Jake met him without hesitation. They collided in the center, and for a breath, the arena felt suspended. I remembered Joshua's earlier words. Calm is part of the agreement. When round 5 ended, Jake's corner didn't scramble. No water tossed, no frantic instruction. They surrounded him the way they did in the storage room. Bodies angled, breathing steady, heads bowed like they were lining up with that same internal rhythm. Someone murmured something I couldn't hear. Jake closed his eyes. The bell for 6 sounded like a door hinge. Joshua stepped forward first. Jake answered. The exchanges sharpened. The edges of each punch felt heavier, as if they were trading something more than impact. When Joshua finally threw the right hand, clean, direct, A punch that belonged to a defining moment. The sound didn't land like violence. It landed like punctuation. Jake fell, but it wasn't collapse. It was descent. Controlled enough that for a heartbeat, the building hesitated, unsure whether to react. Joshua didn't celebrate. He stood at the neutral corner, breathing evenly, gaze forward like someone waiting for confirmation rather than victory. The count began. I watched Jake's eyes. They didn't look confused. They looked finished, complete, like someone signing the last line on a page. The referee waved it off. The crowd detonated with noise, emotional and uncoordinated. But inside the ring, the energy moved differently. Like the center of the arena pulled something inward before anyone else could feel it. I lowered my camera. My hand trembled without permission. Joshua raised a glove. Not triumphant. Acknowledgement. The air shuddered with applause. Fans chanted his name. His corner surrounded him. Relief washing over their faces. And then Jake stood up, slow and steady, just long enough to show he was able to walk on his own. He looked across the ring. His tongue slipped out, a final mark. That same gesture I'd seen in rehearsal, in the hallway, in that storage room where breath moved like tide. The serpent signature. From somewhere behind commentary, I heard the confirmation through a headset. Exchange complete. Proceed. The cheers didn't drown it out, because the word wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. I realized in that moment that this wasn't a disruption of the script. It was the script, fulfilled in every detail. Joshua won the fight. Jake lost the fight. And still, both of them walked away like their roles were equal, like the outcome was never the goal, like the moment was the mechanism. I thought about leaving then, packing up my gear, disappearing before whatever came after. But I stayed rooted to the floor, watching the ring, like the cost might still reveal itself if I stared long enough. It would, just not here. Not yet. The news didn't break like tragedy. It arrived like confirmation. I was back home when the alert hit my phone, first as a headline, then as a photo of twisted metal under a harsh Nigerian sun. Fatal crash, 2 dead, Joshua survives. No commentary, no speculation, just the facts, arranged like a line item on a ledger. The first report said tire failure, then heat distortion, then a parked truck that apparently never moved. Each update felt less like information and more like calibration, like someone rewriting the language until it matched whatever conclusion we were supposed to reach. A clean explanation, a neutral story, something the public could hold without questioning. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the screen. The room felt heavier than it should have. The silence didn't behave like silence. It behaved like waiting. Those 2 men, I recognized their faces from fight week. They weren't background figures. They were always near Joshua, holding pads, adjusting gear, reminding him where to be and when. The kind of people who stay close because closeness matters. Now, they were the ones gone. Joshua survived with minor injuries. Scratches. That was the word every outlet repeated. Scratches. The kind of harm a person walks away from when something else has already been taken in their place. I replayed the fight in my head, round by round, like I was searching for a crack where fate might have slipped through. But it all fit too cleanly. The pacing, the count, the knockout that landed like signature. The confirmation whispered through a headset. Exchange complete. Proceed. He didn't break the script. He fulfilled it. And the cost fulfilled itself. Later that night, the broadcast replayed the knockout. Slow motion, angle by angle, the punch, the fall, the tongue gesture from across the ring like a final mark. The commentators praised discipline and preparation. They used words like destiny and legacy. But I kept hearing something else. That breathwork rhythm, that storage room door snapping shut, that single line from a headset. If the pacing breaks, the collection fails. I don't know what they collected in that arena. I don't know what was transferred, but I know who paid. That crash didn't happen after the fight. It happened because the fight finished exactly the way it was supposed to. Joshua rose, Jake fell. The system balanced the scale. People will call it coincidence. Bad tires, bad timing, heat on the road. But I watched the structure being built. I saw the mechanism waiting to activate. And when something that exact completes itself, the world doesn't collapse. It adjusts. 2 men are gone. Joshua is alive. My thumb hovered over it all day. On the train, at my desk, lying in bed staring at the ceiling. I kept telling myself I was waiting for the right moment. Truth is, there's only one thing I want to ask him. Was it worth it? Not the belt, not the headlines. Him. The way he feels when he closes his eyes now. The way silence sounds when he's alone and remembers those 2 seats in that wrecked car. The way he walks into a room knowing the world calls him lucky, while 2 men close to him never walked out of that trip. Was the fame worth that? Was the money worth that? Was the script worth what it took to complete? I never pressed call. Instead, I did the only thing I know how to do. I turned what I saw into a story and brought it here, to you, because I was there for the buildup. I saw the breathwork behind closed doors. I watched the 6 rounds unfold like steps in a process. I read the reports of that crash. Now I need to know if I'm the only one who feels this way. So I'll ask you the question I'm afraid to ask him. Do you think the Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul fight was a ritual? Tell me in the comments. Like this, if you felt that chill in your chest. Subscribe if you want more of the stories that sit behind the cameras, where the lights don't reach. I might never call him, but you heard what I saw. Now I want to hear you.